Hi, welcome to Nexus Consultancy. We provide professional and strategic consultation services specializing in ISO management system standards on quality, environmental, food safety, and many other standards as well. At Nexus Consultancy, we combine our analytical thinking, improvement-centric approach, and results-oriented mindset to help businesses to grow through ISO certifications. Consulting is more than just giving advice. To us, consulting is about building the connection with customers, solving their problems, implementing the change, and at last, helping them to grow. Our company's purpose is very simple, which is to empower business and people. We have dedicated 12 years in helping businesses to grow and also achieve operational process improvement through ISO certifications. Having served thousands of companies, Nexus Consultancy has truly built a legacy in helping customers to achieve long-term business growth. We have served companies from GLCs, SMEs to big corporations from a wide range of industries. We work closely with you to create a customized consultation as unique as you are, offering you a truly value-added service which can fulfill your business needs and objectives. We believe in what we do and we would also like to do it for you.
Hello everyone. Hello. Welcome to our webinar this afternoon entitled Environmental, Health and Safety Legal Compliance for Manufacturers. We're glad that you are here this afternoon. My name is Joe and I'm with the sales team of Nexus Consultancy. I'm glad to be your host today. Before we start the webinar, please allow me to briefly introduce you our company. We are from Nexus Tech. Nexus Tech is an organization established to provide training and consultancy in all aspects related to management systems, like ISO 9001 and various other ISOs. We also provide consultations for GMP and HACCP and other certifications. And our expertise is available for a wide range of industries, such as the food industry, manufacturing, constructions, medical and healthcare, and many more. Nexus Academy is also part of our company that does soft skill training for team development or personal growth. And all of our courses are customized based on training, analysis, and research gap, understanding the needs of your company prior to training. And last year, we are honored to be partnered with CAIQ from China to provide a one-stop solution center for all your China exports consultation needs. And our services include training by providing customers the information about China requirements. We do lab testings for your products. We do trademark for your product name in China and in Malaysia. We do traceability for your product, certifications, and registration. And the industries we cover are inclusive of food, special food, cosmetics, agriculture, and aquaculture. And Tenon Technology is also another company working alongside with Nexus to provide a digitalized solution to your manufacturing businesses. Products and services offered by Tenon include a real-time monitoring and control for your machine, a centralized cloud-based web or mobile app dashboard, an autonomous system and fully adaptable to the ever-changing environment condition. To sum up, the digitalization of your manufacturing provided by us can give you 3 times faster deployment and 3 times ROI. So that's all about our company, Nexus Consultancy, and our business partners. Nexus, together with our partners, we are here to help your business grow. Without further ado, I would like to pass our time to our speaker this afternoon. I believe you have already seen his introduction video in the beginning. So let us welcome our management consultant from Nexus, Mr. Koh Juan Nun.
Thank you for the introduction, Joe. And good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on environmental health and safety legal compliance for manufacturer. So in this session, we are going to cover the top 5 environmental health and safety requirement which every manufacturer needs to know. All right. So before we start, may I know, is anyone here is actually coming from a manufacturing company, or maybe if your company is already doing manufacturing, can you please type in yes in the comment section? Let us see how many of you are already doing manufacturing. If you are doing manufacturing, can you please type in yes in the comment section? All right, I see some people. Wow. Okay. All right, good. So first of all, why do we even need this environmental health and safety legislations? Why do we even need such laws in place? Anyone else? Legislations are to help what? To help the governing authorities to ensure that the business or the organization do not, cause the undue environmental damage and also put their workers' health and safety at risk. That is why we are having all these environmental health and safety legislations. All right, but we have one issue, which is throughout the years of serving different manufacturers from different industry, right? We have noticed this issue, which is 70% of our Malaysian manufacturers are actually not aware about our own country's environmental health and safety laws and regulations. All right, and in compliance to the law is always due to, I would say it's due to unawareness. So it's not they do not want to comply, it's because they are not aware that they need to comply to all these requirements. All right. So for awareness purpose, today we are going to introduce to you the top 5 environmental health and safety requirement a manufacturer needs to know. All right. So first of all, what do we need to comply? We have this. First of all, we are going to cover water pollution. All right. So water is needed in every manufacturing process, right? So it doesn't matter what you manufacture, there will be discharge of wastewater. All right. So if your factory is discharging wastewater, then the quality parameters of wastewater must comply to our environmental law. Okay. And secondly, we are going to cover the schedule waste. All right. Schedule waste is known as what? Known as chemical waste, right? Okay, which is generated from our manufacturing process. So the generation and disposal of any chemical waste in the factory is governed by environmental law as well. Okay, and moving on, we are going to cover for the third one, which is chemical. Talking about chemical, there are 2 types of chemical, which is hazardous chemical and there will be non-hazardous chemical. So if your factory is having or maybe using any type of hazardous chemical, then we will need to comply to an occupational health and safety law. All right. So later I will be introducing to you what is a health and safety law that you need to comply. And in every manufacturing factory, so if you are doing manufacturing, what do we need? Okay, in order for you to do production, to do manufacturing, we need to have machinery, right? So the question is, how do we ensure the safety of your machinery and also the factory itself? Okay, so in this 4th requirement, I will be introducing to you, the Malaysia's Factory and Machinery Act and also regulation. And last but not least, COVID-19. COVID-19, I believe, is something which every factory, every manufacturer, or maybe every business is most concerned about during this period of time, right? So, but majority of COVID-19 classes in Malaysia are actually coming from where? Are not from the shopping mall, even though like majority of us can shop now already, okay? And also not from the restaurant, not from the cafe, even though for those of you who already got your 2nd dose of vaccine, can already go to dine-in. So, and also not from the grocery, but they are from where? They are from the factories. So in this last session, right, I will be introducing to you, I'll be talking about how does the current COVID-19 situation going to impact a health and safety legal compliance for a manufacturer. So this COVID-19 one, I would say, is very, very critical for every manufacturer. So please make sure that you stay until the end of our session later. All right. And before we start with the first requirement, do allow me to make a small disclaimer, okay? Because to avoid any misunderstanding, the top 5 requirements that we are going to cover today do not mean these are the only 5 that a manufacturer need to comply or need to focus on only. Okay, as a matter of fact, in Malaysia, we have much more other environmental health and safety legislations apart from these 5, such as there are requirements for boundary noise, there are requirements for air emission for a manufacturing factory, there are requirements for fire safety. But today, since we only have limited time, so we only choose these 5 as your top 5 requirements because we believe that these are the 5 that which is most commonly applicable to every common manufacturer in Malaysia. All right. So before I introduce to you the top 5 requirements, let's take a look on our Malaysian legislative framework. So as you could see from this pyramid, right, there are actually differences between an act, a regulation, code of practice, and also guidelines. So while looking at all these terms, to most people, they may seem, or they may sound, or they may look very, very similar, but as a matter of fact, they are very, very different from one another. So first of all, we have an act. All right, act is basically a legislation passed by our Malaysian Parliament. So in terms of environmental health and safety acts, right? In Malaysia, we have acts like Environmental Quality Act, okay, Occupational Health and Safety Act, and also there is a Factory and Machinery Act, etc., which we will be covering in more details later. All right. On the other hand, right, we will have regulations. Regulations could be understood as a subsidiary or supplementary of an act. So to put it simply, regulations are basically the formal guidelines, which is based on the act itself. So one act, they would have numerous regulations, and all these regulations, they are endorsed by the ministry, but they are governed and enforced by the departments. So for health and safety law, then it will be governed by the Occupational Safety DOSH department, which is Department of Occupational Safety and Health. As for the environmental law, it will be governed by the DOE, which is Department of Environment. Whereas code of practices are basically standards and guidance to comply to the regulation. And lastly, we will have guidelines. Guidelines is a bit different. Guidelines are basically the voluntary guidances which are based on the industry best practices. So in that case, it means that no penalty will be imposed even that you don't comply to these guidelines, because all these guidelines, they basically do not have any legal standing in this framework. All right. So right now, I would say it is very, very crucial for you to first understand about this framework, especially on the differences between an act and also a regulation, because later when we cover all the top 5 requirements, all these 5 requirements will be based on the act and also the regulation. Okay. And so without further ado, let's start with the first requirement, which is requirements related to water pollution. Okay. So talking about water pollution, I believe some of you also aware about this case, which is, I think, few days ago on 1st of September, area Selangor announced that over 400 areas in Selangor would face water supply disruption. And unluckily, my area was one of the 400 areas. And the water supply disruption was due to what? Was due to water pollution at Sungai Semenyih. Okay, so for those of you who are staying in Selangor area, maybe like you're already get used to it and sometimes even fed up already lah, because literally every year lah, we are going to face few times of water supply disruption one. Okay, and all these water supply disruption, usually majority of them are caused by pollution, and majority of water pollution in Selangor are contributed by the factory. So such as this case, in December 2020, which is last year, a food and beverage factory in Selangor was fined 90,000 ringgit for polluting the river because it was found discharging wastewater which the standard limits of the effluent already exceed the permissible limits stated in the Industrial Effluent Regulation 2009. Okay, as mentioned during our introduction just now, the quality parameters of the wastewater will need to comply to the limits set by the environmental law. So if a factory was found releasing wastewater which the parameters already exceed the permissible limits, then the factory will face legal actions and also penalty by the authority, which in this case it will be the DOE, Department of Environment Malaysia. Because in Malaysia we have this environmental law known as Environmental Quality Act 1974. All right. And according to the section 25 of that law, Environmental Quality Act, the law says that no person shall, unless licensed, admit, discharge, or deposit any environmental hazardous substance, pollutants, or waste into the inland waters. All right. So maybe you're wondering, what is environmental hazardous substances? Environmental hazardous substances are basically any substance which could harm the environment or maybe which could pollute the environment. So to put it simply, this section of the law basically says that no one can pollute the Malaysian inland waters. All right. So now, this is a regulation which a manufacturer would need to take note of, which is known as Industrial Effluent Regulation. But the question is, what is industrial effluent? Anyone knows what is the meaning of industrial effluent? All right. Industrial effluent is any waste in the form of liquid, or maybe in short, we usually call it as wastewater. Okay. And who shall comply to this Industrial Effluent Regulation 2009? Okay, basically, according to the law, right, any premise who releases, okay, industrial effluent or wastewater shall comply to this law. In another word, right, it means that if your factory is currently releasing industrial effluent to the river, okay, or wastewater into the river, but if you are not complying, then you might face legal actions by our governing authority, which is the DOE. But there are few circumstances. There are few circumstances which could allow you to exclude yourself from subscribing to this law. For instance, if you are doing processing of oil palm fruits, which means if you're a palm oil mill, okay, if you're a palm oil mill, then you are governed by another law which is known as Crude Palm Oil Regulation. Okay. Besides that, if you are doing latex manufacturing, or if you are doing mining activities, then you are also not included in this industrial effluent regulation, because these two industries are also governed by another environmental law as well. But nonetheless, if your factory is doing like normal type of manufacturing, like average manufacturing, which I believe most of you are, but you are releasing industrial effluent, which is not exceeding 60 cubic meters per day. All right. So how much is 60 cubic meters? Anyone knows how much is 60 cubic meters? So 60 cubic meters is basically 60,000 of liters, all right, liters of wastewater. If you are releasing less than 60,000 liters of wastewater per day, then you are not subscribing under this industrial effluent regulation. But there is a semicolon. Semicolon means in order for you to exclude yourself from this law, you also have to comply to other criteria. Okay. So first of all, the effluent cannot contain any oil or grease. Okay. And apart from that, that wastewater also have to be free from toxic metals such as, this is a mercury, cadmium, hexavalent chromium, or arsenic, lead, etc. Okay, there are other toxic metals. Later, I will be introducing to you what are those. All right. And lastly, the BOD level. BOD level, which is a biochemical oxygen demand, or the suspending solids of your effluent, cannot exceed 6 kilograms per day. So if your effluent are able to fulfill these four criteria, right, then you are not governed under this industrial effluent regulation. All right. But what
if you are complying, then if you are governed under this regulation, according to the regulation 11 of this law, all right, the law says that no one can discharge or emit industrial effluent which contains a parameter having a concentration more than the limits stated in the 5th schedule. So 5th schedule is basically extracted from this industrial effluent regulation. All right. So for example, all right, let's take an example. If let's say is a pH value, okay, because I believe everyone learned about pH value even in our secondary school, right? So let's take an example, pH value. The pH value of your wastewater emitted to the river shall be in the range of 6 to 9 for standard A, while for standard B, it will allow 5.5 to 9. All right, so you may be wondering, hey, what is standard A, what is standard B? Okay, in simple terms, right, standard A are basically releases of your effluent from the final discharge point of your factory into the river within the catchment area where the water intake will be used for human consumption purpose. All right. Whereas if it's standard B, okay, it will be outside of the catchment area. Okay, so as you could compare between standard A and standard B, the quality parameters stated in here, everything, standard A, you could notice that it will have a stricter parameters compared to standard B, because the standard A is basically for what? It's basically for our human consumption purpose. But the important question right now is, okay, how do we know whether are we falling under standard A or standard B? Okay, in the regulation, in the industrial effluent regulation, there is another schedule. It's not the 5th schedule, it's called the 6th schedule. All right, so it's called 6th schedule. And in this schedule, there is a list of rivers where standard A applies. All right, so if your effluent is flowing into any of the river stated in the 6th schedule of the regulation, then you will need to comply to standard A. So if you would like to know, do check out the regulation to confirm whether are you falling under the governance of standard A or not. If you cannot find the river there, then it means that you need to comply to standard B. Very simple. Okay. However, let's say after doing a quality test on your effluent discharge, you found out that your concentration of your effluent discharge already exceed the permissible limits stated in this 5th schedule. All right, already exceed, then what do? The law says that we will need to have established certain control. All right, for instance, industrial treatment system. All right, industrial treatment system. In the industry, we usually call it as a IETS. IETS is basically a treatment system for your wastewater to ensure that the parameters, the concentration is kept under the limits stated in the 5th schedule. All right, so talking about handling of IETS, all right, in the industrial effluent regulation, okay, the law has also given some requirements on how to properly handle and operate your treatment system plant. Okay, for instance, in the regulation number 4, the law says that we will need to make notification to the DOE about any construction or upgrading works of the treatment system plant. All right. And secondly, design and construction. Design and construction of your treatment system must be undertaken by a professional engineer registered with our Boards of Engineer Malaysia. So the factory or the boss cannot just simply simplify a contractor to build a treatment system plant for you. Even though the treatment system plant can work very well, can work just like normal, the treatment system will not be approved by the Department of Environment, the DOE. All right. And next, the factory would also need to appoint a competent person to supervise and overlook on the operation of your treatment system plant. And this competent person must have attended and must have completed a course offered by 𝗵𝗲𝗶. Okay, it's basically a 5-day course, and upon the completion of that course, the person will need to sit for an exam. Only after passing the exam, that person will get his or her competent person license. All right. And besides that, monitoring of discharge. Okay, talking about it, Regulation number 7 of the Industrial Effluent Regulation says that during the operation of your treatment system, right, the factory would need to do internal daily tests on your effluent, and also the external one will be undertaken weekly. Okay, and this external one would need to send to the lab. For a daily one, you can do it internally, all right. And actually, for this handling and operation of IETS, there are few other requirements which are not covered in here, because today we only have limited time. So I can only cover the fundamentals for right now, which are these 4. So if you would like to know more about the requirements on how to properly handle an industrial treatment system, you can always refer to this Industrial Effluent Regulation 2009. Okay, you can Google it. I think it will pop up very instantly. Okay. Right now, let's move on to the second requirement of today among our top 5 requirements, which is schedule waste, right? Before we talk about the requirements on how to handle schedule waste, do allow me to share a story. Some of you might have heard of this before, okay? It is an actual case happened in Johor, okay? It was a tragedy which basically shocked the whole country, a case due to irresponsible and also illegal dumping of toxic waste into Sungai Kim Pasir Gudang in Johor. All right. So in March 2019, a lorry from a second-hand tire processing factory, a used tire processing factory, it dumped 20 tons to 40 tons of chemical waste into the river. 20 tons to 40 tons is 20,000 kilos to 40,000 kilos of chemical waste, a toxic waste into the river. A few days later, several school children were hospitalized, were sent to the hospital because of symptoms of chemical poisoning, and few of them are even in a fainted state. They were not aware about anything when they were sent to hospital. At the initial stage, everybody was very curious. Nobody really knew what was going on, which caused the health issues among the nearby residents. So later on, some investigations team from the DOE would deploy to find out what really happened there. Okay, go and investigate. So later on, it was found out that the majority of the health issues were actually caused by inhalation of the toxic gases in the air, which originated from the chemical waste in the river. Okay, and that chemical waste was done by that factory. Okay, and air pollution, water pollution has led to an air pollution. Okay, and that ignorant actions of that factory has caused all 111 schools in Pasir Gudang shut down for 2 weeks, and nearly 6,000 victims reported symptoms like nausea, breathing difficulties, and also headache. Okay, and also 25 of the 6,000 victims who had the more serious symptoms were sent to ICU for treatment, and that incident has cost the government more than 10 million ringgit for the cleanup operation of the river. It was a total disaster. Okay, so later on, the 2 company directors of that used tire processing factory, which is the boss, which one of them was actually a Singaporean. Both of them were slapped with 15 charges under our Environmental Quality Act. Okay, and not just this case, apart from that, we also have other similar cases in Malaysia which are related to improper handling and disposal of chemical waste generated from manufacturing process. For example, in this case, in May 2021, which is only a few months ago, okay, a company in Bukit Minyak was fined 642,000 ringgit for dumping oil waste into the river. 642,000 ringgit, that's over 500,000 ringgit because of just dumping oil waste into the drain, and their license was also suspended. So I would say this schedule waste is a very serious offense in Malaysia, all right? And soon, heavier penalties will also be imposed by our government for schedule waste pollution. Our Environment and Water Minister, Dato Sri Tuan Ibrahim, also proposed amendment of the law, okay, for heavier penalty, which up to 15 million ringgit fine to be imposed if any factory was found polluting the river with their chemical waste. 15 million ringgit. That is, imagine that's a lot of money. All right. So it's been few minutes I talked about this schedule waste already, but what exactly is schedule waste? All right. So right now, can I know who has heard of schedule waste before this webinar, or maybe you are already the person in charge in your factory handling all your schedule waste? If that is the case, can you please type in yes in the comment section? If you have heard of it before, if you already know that what is schedule waste, can you please type in yes? If you have never heard of it, or before this webinar, okay, if you langsung tak tahu what is schedule waste yet, can you please type in no in the comment section? Let us see how many of you have heard of it. Okay, majority of you say yes. Few of you say not familiar yet. Okay, but wow, majority of you actually knew about it. Okay, all right, that is good. Okay, so how is schedule waste different compared to the normal waste we generate from our household activities? So right now, let's take a look on the difference. Normal waste is basically the normal rubbish, the trash that we generate from our house. Okay, then what about schedule waste? What about schedule waste? According to the definition of environmental quality Schedule Waste Regulation 2005, right? Schedule waste is defined as any waste falling within the categories of schedule. All right. So for those of you who are not yet familiar with the regulation, you may not know what is a first schedule. All right. But in layman terms, in layman terms, schedule waste is basically toxic waste and also hazardous waste. Okay, something which could cause harm to the environment. Okay, as simple as that. Okay, so if your factory is generating or releasing any schedule waste, then in Malaysia, you are governed under this Schedule Waste Regulation 2005. Okay, it is a law under the Environmental Quality Act, which is the same as the Industrial Effluent Regulation we have covered for the first requirement just now. Okay, so as mentioned, one act may have numerous regulations. So in this case, both of these schedule waste and also industrial regulations, they are both under the Environmental Quality Act, which is being enforced by the DOE, Jabatan Alam Sekitar. All right. And also, if your factory is generating schedule waste, under the schedule waste regulation, there are certain requirements which you must be aware of and also must be complying with. Okay, first of all is identification. Identification means that you will need to go and identify and list down all the schedule waste your company is, your factory is currently generating. Okay, and each type of schedule waste would have their own schedule waste code number, and all the code numbers are available in the first schedule of the regulation. I would say knowing what is the code number of your schedule waste is very, very crucial, because later on when you want to make any notification or any reporting to the DOE, that code number is a information which is going to be submitted. Okay, and secondly, factory will need to do notification. The manufacturer will need to notify DOE on field information related to your schedule waste. For instance, like the amount of schedule waste generated, okay, the date of generation, and what types of schedule waste you are generating, etc. All this information can be notified via an electronic platform known as 𝗚ǐce, all right, which is an online portal under the Department of Environment. I will cover a bit on 𝗚ǐce later in the next slide. Okay, and schedule waste is known as what? It's known as toxic waste, right? As mentioned just now, or hazardous waste, which could harm the environment or harm the human body. They are dangerous. So designated storage must be provided for those schedule waste. So we cannot just simply simplify an empty area to store that waste. Okay, it's not allowed according to the law. Okay, and the schedule waste regulation also stated that the waste generator, which is you, okay, which is the manufacturer, which is a factory, they will need to label their containers of their schedule waste. and the disposal of the schedule waste can only be undertaken by a licensed contractor. Okay, other people such as the normal domestic waste collector, they are not allowed to handle or to collect your schedule waste one. All right, so right now let's take a closer look on each part of your schedule waste management. All right, so under regulation number 3 of your schedule waste regulation, the law says that the waste generator would need to notify DOE within 30 days from the date of generation of the waste, okay, using this system called 𝗚̱cie. Okay, previously, before that, a few years back, if the company, if the factory, if the manufacturer would like to submit an inventory record or make any notification, they would need to do hard copy submission. But right now with this system, everything, including this notification of inventory, can be done through this platform known as 𝗚̱cie already. Okay, and not just notification. As a matter of fact, right, every information related to your schedule waste can be submitted and also monitored via 𝗚̱cie. But of course, the manufacturer will need to have an account first in this 𝗚̱cie system. But I would say, compared to the conventional method, right, which is a traditional where we still need to do hard copy document submission, this platform really have given a lot of convenience to the people who want to make any notification, who want to make any document submission. All right, and apart from making notification, the waste generator can also upload the status of their schedule waste inventory in 𝗚̱cie. So whenever you want to store your schedule waste, or whenever you have generated a schedule waste, you need to wait. It means you need to wait your schedule waste, and after the weighing process is done, you have to add the weighment. You have to add your weighment into your current inventory. Okay, and this function of 𝗚̱cie would allow you to monitor your inventory status, because under regulation number 9, the law says that no one can store their schedule waste for more than 180 days or for more than 20 metric ton. All right, means that you must dispose your schedule waste at least 6 months or when it reaches 20 metric ton. And lastly, the consignment note. The consignment note for your waste disposal can also be done and submitted through system known as 𝗚̱cie. All right, and right now moving on to storage of schedule waste. Okay, under the regulation number 9, it has given some requirements related to storage. Okay, the law says that we will need to store our schedule waste in a durable containers. Okay, durable means it is strong enough to prevent any spillage or any leakage of your schedule waste. Okay, hey, how do I know whether my current containers, are they durable enough? Are they strong enough to prevent leakage or spillage? All right, so here are some of the examples of containers which are suggested and recommended by the guidelines published by DOE. Okay, and apart from that, like mentioned, we also have to make sure we are not allowed to store schedule waste for more than 180 days from the date of generation or more than 20 metric ton. All right, and apart from that, the storage must be in a covered area or sheltered area. So it cannot be an open area without a roof, okay? Because the roof is basically to protect the schedule waste, okay, from harsh weather like sunlight, like rain, like strong wind, okay? So these are examples of how a proper schedule waste storage should look like. Okay, and if your schedule waste is in the form of liquid, okay, and in that case, a secondary containment, which something looks like this, this is known as a secondary containment, okay, must be provided. Okay, this is basically to ensure that if the schedule waste, if it spills or if it leaks, right, it will still be contained in here, okay, in the containment and not leak outside to the containment. Okay, this is basically to ensure that, okay, and apart from storing in a suitable container, okay, under regulation number 10 of the schedule waste regulation, the waste generator shall also label their schedule waste container. Okay, and the labeling, right, must consist of two parts. One, this is a danger symbol, and second part, which is a schedule waste information such as your waste code number, such as your name of waste or your date of generation, etc. and the danger symbols of your labeling must be at least 10 centimeters times 10 centimeters. All right. So this is how a sample labeling should look like. Okay. Of course, this danger symbol, right? Do not misunderstand. This danger symbol or this, okay, doesn't mean every time it have to be corrosive. Okay, because this is only an example. Okay, it's not, so you have to label the danger symbol according to the waste, the hazard property of the schedule waste. Okay, and at the end of the day, your schedule waste, which we accumulate and which we store, must ultimately be disposed, right? If we cannot store forever in our premise. Okay, but the question is, who is gonna dispose the schedule waste? Who is gonna dispose the schedule waste? It's not me, it's not you, it's also not the 𝗵𝗲𝗹𝗃, okay, like mentioned, because domestic waste collector are not allowed to handle. So it will have to be this handled by licensed contractor, means company who are approved by the DOE to transport and also to treat the scheduled waste. Okay, and the licensed contractor is available in the DOE website. If you need any licensed contractor, you can search for it in the website. Okay, and before disposal, the waste generator or the factory or the manufacturer, which is you, shall raise a consignment note in 𝗚̱ance. Okay, when the contractor come and collect your schedule waste, the waste generator or the factory shall provide the contractor a waste card as per the 7th schedule of the regulation. So you may be wondering, hey, what is a waste card? Okay, a waste card is basically a piece of document or piece of paper which contains information of your schedule waste, such as your the name of the waste, the handling instruction of the waste, the hazard properties of the waste, etc. Okay, so this waste card is something you would need to provide to your contractor when they come and do the collection of your schedule waste. Okay, all right, so now we have already covered 2 requirements. Okay, moving on to our third one, which is usage of hazardous chemical. Okay, usage of chemical, I would say, is very common in the manufacturing sector, and in Malaysia, right, usage of hazardous chemical is governed by the Occupational Health and Safety Law. The regulation is a use and standard of exposure. Later, I'll talk about it. And in this part, we are going to cover, okay, what are the requirements? What are the things that you need to do in order to comply to the law when you use those hazardous chemical for your manufacturing activities. Okay, all right. So just now when we were talking about hazardous chemical, since there is a hazardous chemical, means definitely there is a non-hazardous chemical, right? So because everything in this world has an opposite. Okay, literally everything in this world has an opposite. So first of all, what are the difference between non-hazardous and also hazardous? It is basically the same concept as how we compared the normal waste and scheduled waste just now. All right, so to understand hazardous chemical, first of all, what is the meaning of hazard? Anyone knows what is the meaning of hazard? Hazard means dangerous, right? Okay, so non-hazardous chemical means chemicals which are safe to use, okay, and they are normally for household usage, such as your shampoo, your face wash, your cosmetic, your detergent, your whatever. Okay, they are normally used in a house, all right, and normally they are known as non-hazardous. Okay, otherwise, why would we still use them and apply them on our body, right? Okay, and whereas hazardous chemicals are chemicals which could cause harm to our body, they are dangerous and they are not safe for direct contact and direct exposure. Usually they are used for agricultural purpose, they are used for a manufacturing purpose, maintenance purpose, or any manufacturing purpose, all right? And they could normally be identified through all these danger symbols. This is an indication that your chemical is a hazardous chemical, all right? So in Malaysia, there are 2 main regulations which govern the usage of hazardous chemical. Okay, for users, if you are using a hazardous chemical, this regulation, which is known as Use and Standard of Exposure of Chemical Hazardous to Health Regulation, will be applicable. Whereas if you are a manufacturer, if you are manufacturing, if you are producing or supplying hazardous chemical, then you will be required to comply to this classification, labeling, and safety data sheet regulation, okay, which in short form we usually call it as class regulation. Okay, so unless you are a manufacturer of hazardous chemical, which I assume majority of you are not, meaning if you are just using, you are not supplying, you are not manufacturing, if you are just using, then you will be governed under this regulation, use and standard of exposure. Okay, however, the users, means as a user, you also need to purchase your chemical from someone, right? So when you receive that chemical from your supplier, you also have to make sure, okay, that chemical that you receive has comes with a proper labeling, comes with a safety data sheet, etc. All right, and also, now that you know what is an hazardous chemical, but how do we really confirm that that chemical that we are dealing with right now, is it a hazardous or non-hazardous? Okay, actually there are few ways to tell lah. Okay, first of all, it can be told through the labeling. All right, it can be told through the labeling, because if the label of the container contains this kind of danger symbols, then it means that is a hazardous chemical. Besides that, we can always refer to the safety data sheet of that chemical, which you can obtain it from your chemical supplier. Okay, and I would say if you would really want to be 100% sure whether your chemical is a hazardous one or non-hazardous one, I would say SES will be a most reliable information you can refer to. Okay, and according to the regulation 24 and 25 of the same regulation, which is a use and standard of exposure regulation, the safety data sheet which you have already obtained from your supplier must be made available near the location where the chemical is being used and where the chemical is being stored. All right, for instance, if you use it at like a production area, or maybe a maintenance area. Okay, so let's take an example. Okay, if the hazardous chemical is used at a particular machinery, then the SDS shall be made available near the machinery. Okay, for example, if for a printing company, okay, if, for whoever does printing, then you will have what? You have printing machine, right? So to do printing, you need to have the ink. You also need to have all those coloring, right? So ink is considered as a hazardous chemical. They may cause health issues to the user. So in that case, we will need to prepare a safety data sheet near the printing machines. Okay, and besides that, the SDS, the safety data sheet, shall also be made available near the chemical storage area. And not only the safety data sheet, according to another regulation, which is regulation 29, under the same use and standard of exposure, the law says that we will need to provide a signage, a warning signage, including this kind of danger symbols, and also what PPE to wear. What are the personal protective equipment to wear when we come near to the hazardous chemical? This kind of information shall display as a warning signage, okay, to the where the chemical is being used and where the chemical is being stored. And then, all right, and it's for chemical storage, then we will need to provide them this chemical storage area signage. Okay, and even though just now we say, okay, hazardous chemical is used for manufacturing process, right? But who is more likely? Do you think who is more likely to expose to the chemical? Is it like, for example, production manager? Is it the manager, or is it someone who do the office administration work, or maybe office executive, or is it the production workers? Who do you think will be facing most of the risk of handling those chemicals? Definitely, it will be the production workers, right? Because they are always using the chemicals basically every day. But the question is, how do we know whether the workers, they are safe when handling and when using all those hazardous chemicals? In that case, the law says that we will need to engage an external assessor to conduct an assessment. This assessment is known as chemical health risk assessment. In short, we usually call it as a CHRA. So this assessment shall be conducted every 5 years, and the report shall be maintained for at least 30 years. Okay, so after that assessment has been conducted, if the report determines that further monitoring is needed to test the exposure, whether is it at the permissible limits or not, right? Then we will also need to engage the same assessor or it could be another assessor, but they are doing this another monitoring, which is known as chemical exposure monitoring. This is basically to test the exposure, whether is it at the permissible limits, while the assessment, the CHRA, which is chemical health risk assessment, is to test the degree of exposure and also to check whether is our control, are they sufficient or not. Okay. All right. So for more information on how to safely store your hazardous chemical, you can always refer to these guidelines. Okay, these guidelines is published by the Department of Occupational Safety and Health. So if you would like to know more on the storage, then you can always go to Google or go to DOSH website to look for that information. Okay, so right now we have already completed 3 requirements. Now moving on to the 4th one, which is factory and machinery safety. So if you are a manufacturer, okay, in order for us to do manufacturing, so what are the equipment we need to have? We need to have certain production machinery, right? So in this requirement, we are going to talk about what are the, in terms of safety of the factory and machinery, what are the requirements that you as a manufacturer or you as a factory would need to be aware of and also to comply with. Okay, and safety of factory and machinery is governed by another law. It's not the Occupational Health and Safety Law for the hazardous chemical. It will be governed by another law known as Factory and Machinery Act. Okay, but they are being enforced by the same department, which is the Department of Occupational Safety and Health, which is DOSHA. All right, so just like how the title is written, which is Factory and Machinery Safety. So in this part, we are going to cover the 2 separate components, which is the factory and also the machinery. So first, let's talk about machinery safety first. Talking about machinery safety, it is quite rare, I would say. It is very rare to hear someone got injured by any machine accident or maybe any accident due to machine failure, all right? But throughout our experience of handling different manufacturers, we could say that machine accidents do happen all the times, and majority of the machine accidents are due to faulty and missing of machine fencing. All right, so in that case, this factory and machinery law, right, they have already set up certain rules and regulations for the machine fencing. So according to the fencing of machinery and safety regulation, the law says that the dangerous parts of a machinery shall be securely fenced. A dangerous part of a machinery shall be securely fenced. So what are dangerous parts of a machine? What are dangerous parts of a machine? To put it simply, dangerous parts are basically any moving part of a machine which has the potential, which might cause injury to the operator, such as any rotating parts or any presses or any like sharp blades. All right, if your machine in your factory has those dangerous parts which I have just mentioned, then you will be governed under this fencing of machinery and safety regulation 1970. Okay, because the purpose of fencing is basically to prevent the operator, the people from coming near to that dangerous part. Okay, for example, this is a table saw machine, right? Okay, this is a table saw machine, and this rotating blade is considered as a dangerous part. So to ensure that the hand of an operator or any person, to ensure that their hands cannot come near to this blade, right? This guarding would need to be provided. This is a guarding of a machinery. Okay. Actually, talking about all this machine, all this guarding, all this fencing thing, a lot of people do not really care about all these things, because we always have this mindset, we always have this assumption of like thinking, where got accidents so easy to happen one but when it comes to like buying all the 4D, buying all the photo, they're so confident, tonight must will kena one, right? So sometimes human psychology is really difficult to explain okay, but when you seriously think about it, right, which one got a higher chance for you to kena? Is it like using this kind of a machine like literally every day, because if you have machinery you operate every day, right? Okay, or when you buy like a total of 40, which one got higher chance? All right, I will leave that to you to decide or to think about it. All right, and talking about this machine, personally, personally, I have quite a close friend lah. Okay, he owns a small scale furniture factory in our hometown. Okay, he's a friend from the same hometown. He is basically the second generation of the business already. I remember like it was last year. Okay, few months back lah, I visited his factory because I wanted to ask him to help me to design and make and tailor make a shoe cabinet. So I went to his factory and we chat lah. Okay, then you know what I saw? I saw this same table saw machine exactly like this without the guarding with this dangerous blades protruded. All right. So apart from that, you know what I saw? I saw a missing thumb. A missing thumb. You know, this is a thumb, right? A missing thumb from his right hand. So before that, I remember his hand was totally okay, totally perfect with all the fingers attached one. All right. So I was so shocked. I was so, you know, I asked him, like, okay, what happened? So he told me it was this same table saw machine which caused him to lose his thumb. All right. So it was very sad lah. Okay. During that moment, it was very sad. So he told me because during that time, he was using this machine because, you know, sometimes to make a cabinet, you need certain length of wood, right? But all the woods, they come in a standard size. They are supplied by the supplier in a standard size one. So they will need to cut it, the carpenter will need to cut it short to make the cabinet. So he was pushing the wood to this table saw machine. All right. So during that time, he said he was rushing for a project. So he was going too fast. So accidentally, he cut his thumb by this blade, by this rotating blade. He was then sent to hospital. He told me he lost a lot of blood, but luckily he said he survived lah. He was okay. But something which is not so lucky one, he said he lost his thumb lah. Now he only has like 4 fingers left on his right hand. So and he told me today he still makes furniture. He still makes furniture like usual, but he told me he has a lot of limitations already because whenever he needs to hold or grab something which is heavier, then simply he needs help. He will need help lah. So the message I want to give here is, you know, accidents do happen. So if you have like those machinery, this kind of machinery, I will urge everyone to really take things seriously. Look into it seriously. It's not just for the sake of complying to all the law. It's not just for the sake of getting for preventing getting someone, or it's basically for the sake of your workers as well. Okay, any type of accident could be somehow prevented. Okay, and apart from this blade, right, we also have rotating belts. If you have those rotating belts or drilling machine like this, then we will also need to provide a guarding, a fencing. All right, so in short, you may imagine this kind of machinery as those, like, you know, sometimes in our house, we have those standing fans, right? Standing fans is always come with a cover. So imagine can you sit in front of the standing fan for the whole day without the cover? You know, imagine how dangerous it is, right? We are not even talking about, you know, the hand go near to the fan, but in the factory, that is a actual situation. All right, so it is the same concept. Okay, and apart from this fencing, for machinery, right, there are also certain machinery which would require us to get a permit from 𝗏𝗏, from the Department of Occupational Safety and Health, before we are allowed to operate it. But all these permits, they are governed by another law, but it's also under the same act, which is Factory and Machinery Act. This regulation is known as Notification, Certificate of Fitness and Inspection Regulation. So certificate of fitness are basically the permits for your machinery. And in Malaysia, there are mainly 3 types of permit, which is PMT, PMA, and also PMD. However, not all machinery would require a permit. Only like certain machinery, which, for example, like air compressor, LPG storage tank, or air receiver would need to have a permit, which is known as permit machine tekanan. All right. So for machinery like overhead crane, like hoisting machines or goods lift, then you will need to get permit machine angkat, which is PMA, from the 𝗏𝗏 department. So if for those of you who are staying in in a condominium, or maybe if you go to shopping mall, when you take a lift, if you take a lift, you can pay attention to the top right hand corner of the lift. Okay, it's usually at the top right hand corner. You can notice that confirm they will have a signage, and the signage will state PMA, PMA, which is permit machine angkat, and few numbers at the back. It means the lift has already been inspected by the 𝗏𝗲. Okay, so if your factory has steam boiler, then you will need to get permit machine PMD. All these kind of permits do not mean once you obtain it, then it will last you like forever for a few years. No, right? These kind of permits will need to be renewed every year. And before the renewal, 𝗏𝗲 will come to your factory and inspect those machinery to ensure that they are still working okay, they are still working safely before they allow you to renew the permits for this kind of machine. All right. And now we have already covered machinery. Now let's take a look on the second component of this rule, which is the factory. Okay, under the Factory and Machinery Act, right? But another regulation already, okay, another regulation which is known as Safety and Health and Welfare Regulation. This regulation, they are more focused on the safe operation and also the indoor environment of the factory. For instance, the law says that stacking of material against any wall in your factory is not allowed unless the wall is strong enough to withstand the load from that stacking material. And besides that, the stacking also cannot be too high. Okay, not just for the law, but because imagine if it's too high, then it might topple and it also might hurt the people nearby. Okay, and besides that, under this law, okay, if your manufacturing process or if your machinery is releasing too much of heat, okay, then we will need to have certain control. Okay, for example, that control is basically to bring down the temperature of that environment, because we will need to ensure that that heat is not causing any discomfort or any health issues to the operator, to the workers, such as we can install like air conditioner or air cooler or ventilation, etc. All right, and if your manufacturing factory has equipment like boilers, if you have equipment like boilers, like storage tanks, or maybe a chimney, any kind of works such as maintenance activities performed inside those equipment, they are considered as working in confined space. So this is an example of working in confined space. So if you have such activities available in your premise, then you will need to comply to the law related to confined spaces, and certain controls such as permit to work and also to only authorize the competent person to work in those confined space must be established. Okay, and according to the law, if someone is required to work at height of 10 feet from the ground, 10 feet, which is around 3 meter plus, if someone is required to work at that height, then we will need to have certain controls such as to give them a safety belt and safety ropes. All right, and also if your if your factory has machinery which create loud noise, okay, which you have a very noisy machine, okay, if you have a very noisy machine, then you will need to comply to this Noise Exposure Regulation 2019. Okay, so how much noise can a worker be exposed to, which is considered safe to them, which is considered safe to the worker? The law mentions that a worker can only be exposed to a noise limit under 85 decibel, and beyond 85 decibel, beyond that limit, the workers are facing a risk of hearing impairment or hearing loss. Okay, but the question is, how do we know whether our worker are they being exposed to a noise which is under or beyond 85 decibel? To know that, we will need to engage the external assessor to conduct noise risk assessment. This noise risk assessment is similar concept to the CHRA, which we have just covered for the hazardous chemical, right? So this noise risk assessment, they are focused on measuring the noise okay? So if the assessment report indicates that the workers are being exposed to a noise which already exceed the permissible limits, right, then we will need to do audiometric testing. Okay, audiometric testing is another assessment already, which is different compared to the noise risk assessment. Okay, this audiometric testing would be conducted to test the workers' hearing ability, and from that we will know whether the workers are they having any hearing impairment or hearing loss. Okay, all right. So here come to the last part of our top 5 requirements, which we are going to cover as a manufacturer in terms of health and safety. is there any new requirement or changes of requirement due to COVID-19 which you need to be aware of? Because, like quite often from the news, we can see which company, which manufacturer, they got summoned, they got fined because they did not comply to the COVID-19 SOP, right? All right. And apart from that, I believe some of you also have seen news like this, right? So what you can tell from all these news, as news have reported, most of the COVID-19 clusters are actually from the factory, from the manufacturing sector. So they are not from the restaurant, not from the shopping mall, not from the grocery, but they are from the factory. But why factories are always being blamed for any COVID-19 clusters? Because of poor compliance with the SOP given by the government and long working hours. Because of what? Because being situated in an enclosed area without a very good ventilation, I would say definitely will increase the risk of exposure. And of course, the most dangerous part, I would say, having too many people living in a cramped dormitory. Okay? All right. So, if it's talking about this COVID-19, how long has this COVID-19 situation been? How long? If you count from like March 2020, I think it's been more than 1.5 years already, right? Or maybe some of you already lost count because too long already. And actually, throughout during this outbreak of the COVID-19, all of us, not just manufacturer, not just the business, not just any factory, all of us are governed under this Prevention and Control of Infectious Disease Act 1988. All right, and under its regulations, measures within infected local area regulation 2021, right? Okay, this regulation number 14, is something that you would definitely want to take note of. Because if you have a foreign worker working in your factory, according to this regulation number 14, right, the law says that the employer shall pay for any COVID-19 test, the cost for any COVID-19 tests if required by the officer. Of course, not those like voluntary tests. Like today, I feel like I want to do COVID-19 test, then the worker go and do, then they claim from the company. No, not those kind. Only those foreign workers which were believed to have come to close contact with another COVID-19 positive worker in the factory, or maybe the workers show any symptoms, or maybe because it was requested by officer, then the employer shall pay for the cost of that COVID-19 test. And in the law, they also mention any offense against the regulation or the law, right? It will be liable to a fine not exceeding 50,000 ringgit or imprisonment for a term not more than 6 months or to both. Okay, that is why sometimes you can read from the news which company, which manufacturer they got summoned for 50,000 ringgit is because the regulation says it so, right? And if your company is already been certified with ISO 14001 or ISO 45001, most likely you have already established something which we usually call it as a legal register, all right? Legal register is basically a list of legal requirements your company is applicable to comply, all right? So if that is the case, if you already have it, this Prevention and Control of Infectious Disease Act and also this regulation is something that you would definitely want to add in your legal register, because during your external audit, this is something your auditor would want to confirm that you are aware, and also they want to confirm, okay, you are already complying, all right? So now I want to ask a question. Okay, do you think is COVID-19 considered as an occupational disease? Do you think COVID-19 is an occupational disease? Can you, if yes, right, can you please type in yes? If you think it is not, you can also type in no in the comment section. If you think it is a occupational disease, you can comment yes. If you think it's no, not, then you can also comment no lah. Some people say yes. Majority of you say yes, but some of you say no. Right? Okay, so let's find out whether is it yes or no. Okay, so in April 2020, which is last year when COVID-19 first hit, right? In April 2020, 𝗚̱曦, I guess everyone know who is 𝗚̱曦, right? Okay, in April 2020, 𝗚̱曦 confirms that COVID-19 is an occupational disease. which in another word, it means it will be the duty and it will be the responsibility of the employer, of the workers, to take care of their workers' health and safety and provide them a safe workplace to prevent any spread or any exposure of the virus in the workplace, all right? And not just the Prevention and Control of Infectious Disease Act 1988, right? According to this law, which is the Occupational Health and Safety Act 1994, section number 15. According to this law, right, the law also says that it will be the duty of the employer to ensure the safety, health, and welfare of the workers. And any offense against this law will be liable to a fine not exceeding 10,000 ringgit or imprisonment for a term not more than 1 year or to both. All right. So if you are an employer, if you are a manufacturer or factory, please pay attention to this. Okay. So we have almost come to the end of our top 5 requirements already. And just now, when we were going through all the top 5 requirements, right? Maybe, maybe, I just simply assume there were some requirements which your company was supposed to comply, was supposed to follow, but currently not yet comply. All right. So after the webinar, you know, okay, what are the things that you need to do? What are the things that you need to implement? What are things that you need to set up in order to comply to the environmental health and safety laws, whatever it is. All right. So if you are the owner of the business, it's very straightforward, because whether you want to follow, whether you want to comply, whether you want to implement is really up to your choice. Because if you say yes, everyone will follow. Okay. But let's say if you are not the decision maker of the company yet, then I would say things will be a bit difficult already, or will become more complex already, because especially later when you go back, okay, you tell your boss, hey boss, our chemical waste, the chemical waste we're generating right now, they are governed by the Schedule Waste law, and we need to label, we need to store, we need to ask the contractor come and collect, blah blah blah. Then for those bosses, which is a bit more traditional one, maybe with a conventional mindset. Okay, confirm they will tell you, no need one for the past 10 years we've been doing like this. Confirm, no problem one. You think the DOE so free come and inspect our factory, man? Okay, maybe all these things do happen. We have encountered this issue before. So I want to say maybe maybe we were lucky for the past 10 years, but how could we be so sure that we are still lucky for this year, for next year, or many, many years to come? Because by the time the authority really come and inspect, if they found out, okay, if you really get caught, I would say many things will be a bit too late already. Okay, there's nothing you can do already. Okay, actually throughout the years of serving different clients, many clients, I would say this kind of issue, this kind of phenomena is pretty normal, and it happens to many companies. And because to majority of the business owners, right, to them, business sometimes is about just sales, it's just about marketing, it's about profit, and everything else to them is a cost. Okay, and to be honest, to comply to certain requirements which we have just gone through, for example, like constructing a treatment system plant, all these things are not really cheap. It needs hundreds of thousands of ringgits, so significant amount of money would need to be invested. So not just treatment system plant, for example, you need to get your assessor to do your CHRA, to do your noise risk assessment, or maybe just buying personal protective equipment. All these things do not come cheap. So unless you can persuade the boss, you can give them a strong financial or economic reason why we need to implement or why we need to comply to all the environmental health and safety legal requirements, right? I would say majority of them do not really care, okay, especially during this tough economic season. And I will tell you why that is such a wrong idea to have. Because based on statistics and based on study, right, it has been concluded that the cost of implementing environmental health and safety management system or complying to all those requirements is far more less than the cost required for, let's say, any workplace accident, any lost time injury, any fatality, any accident, or any cleanup operation of any pollution you have created. Because if those cases really happen in your factory to your company, the authority doesn't matter, it's police, doesn't matter, it's a DOE or DOSH, right? Definitely they will come to pay you a visit one. No kidding, all right? And if in worst case scenario, the business owners, the boss might even face legal actions and penalty by the authority. Okay, and from there you even need to pay for the lawyer's fee lah, you need to pay for the court fees. So just like the Sungai Kim Kim case, which we have learned just now. So which one is more costlier? Is it like complying to the requirements, or is it after getting caught and you need to pay for all those? Which one is costlier? I'll leave that to you to think about it and decide lah. Okay, all right. So as introduced by Joe just now in the beginning, what we do is we help our clients to establish, to implement their ISO management system. So as a company, if you are a client, if you would like to get certified to all these ISO certifications, I would say not only you would need to comply to our ISO requirements, but you would also need to comply to the legal requirements as well. Okay, and in fact, if you cannot comply to the legal requirements, I don't think we should even talk about certifications anymore, because it's impossible to get certificate if you don't comply. But implementation of ISO standards, I would say, would definitely help with any legal compliance. All right, but how? As some of you might have known, ISO 14001 is a standard for environmental management system. This standard is implemented to help businesses, to help companies to reduce the environmental impact and also the pollution from their business activity. And also, as for ISO 45001, this standard is a occupational health and safety management system to ensure that our workers are working in a safe and protected environment. Okay, and ISO 14001 and ISO 45001 are basically two different standards. They are two different standards for two different purposes, but one thing in common is they are both required. Whoever want to get certified need to comply to the legal requirements. Okay, as for ISO 14001, it will be the environmental law. As for the ISO 45001, it will be the health and safety law. So whenever we help our clients to achieve their ISO certifications, we will also help our clients to identify what are the legal requirements which are applicable to their business. Okay, and not just that, we will also help them to evaluate their current compliance status to know whether are they currently complying. If no, then we will teach them how to comply. Okay, adopting all these ISO standards doesn't matter it's ISO 14001 or ISO 45001. I would say it has many benefits. Which one of them definitely would include compliance to the local legal requirements, because being certified to all these ISO certifications would definitely let your stakeholders know. Okay, let your customer, your supplier, your investor, or maybe your partners or the public to know that you have already operated your business according to the legal requirements, which I believe will definitely increase their trust level and also their confidence level toward your organization. All right. So I think that is everything I would like to share with you for today. Okay, those were the top 5 requirements. I believe you have gotten some valuable insights. So right now, I would like to pass it back to Joe. Over to you, Joe.
Thank you, John. Thank you once again. Thank you, John, for your sharing on the environmental health and safety legal compliance for manufacturers. Now, before we proceed to our Q&A session, we have a good news for every one of you who stayed until now with us. We are giving away a free legal requirements register to you, and it is in a PDF form, and we will have a lucky draw as well. So do stay until after our Q&A to know how you can get this free gift and how to participate in our lucky draw. All right, so let us proceed with our Q&A. We will try our best to answer most of your queries. You all may write down your questions in the comment as well. We will pin the questions, and when the questions will be pinned on the screens. So let us look at our first question from Daniel. Is COVID-19 self-test kit considered a scheduled waste?
All right, so that is a very good question. Self-test kits are considered as a schedule waste under the schedule waste code number SW404. So to answer that question, yes, Self-test kits are basically scheduled waste. All right.
Okay, for the next question by Ivan Tan, is hydraulic oil used for maintenance activities scheduled waste?
Hydraulic oil. Hydraulic oil is a schedule waste. The code number is a 306. So if you are using hydraulic oil, then you will be categorized under schedule waste as well. All right.
Okay. Next question is from Patrick Wong. Please define waste that need to be declared.
Waste to be declared means what are the ways that you need to declare as schedule waste? If I understand your question correctly, then means schedule waste, like mentioned, it will be any waste falling within the categories of first schedule according to the regulation. So if you really want to become really want to be 100% sure, I will advise we can go to the regulation to check it out. All right. So there will be a list of schedule waste there.
Okay, next question is from Daniel Tan. Is scheduled waste regulation only applicable to manufacturers?
Definitely no. Okay, ISO standards they can be used for any business. All right, any industry, any size. All right, so not just manufacturer. Is if you are doing like construction, schedule waste regulation. If it's schedule waste regulation, then it will be for any premise who generate schedule waste. All right, any premise who generates schedule waste. So if you are doing construction, maintenance, or if you are doing any type of services which generate schedule waste, then you will be governed under the regulation. So to answer that question, it's not just a manufacturer, but any organization, any business, any size who generate schedule waste. All right.
Okay. Next question from Xiao Wei Wong. Can the SDS be in soft copy stored in computer near the chemical storage?
Yep, it can be a soft copy, not really have to be a hard copy.
Okay. Let's see the next question. From YS Lin. How long does it usually take to implement ISO 14001 and ISO 45001?
It really depends, all right? So if it's just one standard alone, right? For example, if it's just ISO 14001 one standard alone or ISO 45001 one standard alone, right? It will usually take around 4 to 6 months for the implementation. All right. However, if it's both standards together, means ISO 14001 and also ISO 45001 together in a standard, it will usually take around, I would say, 6 to 8 months. But then it will vary according to the progress, to the commitment, etc. There are other factors to consider as well. But those timeline which I've just mentioned is just a predictable and also ideal timeline for us to do any implementation. All right.
Okay, next question from LKL Scientific. If I return the scheduled waste to the supplier, do I still need to record it in the ESWIS?
If you return the schedule waste to your supplier, you still need to record. So if the 𝗚𝚻 is only for disposal, okay, means the contractor come and collect. All right. So if that is the case, you are not. If the supplier, if we need to think about whether is a supplier a licensed contractor. If yes, then we need to do that 𝗚𝚻. If it's no, then we are not allowed to return to the supplier. Okay.
Okay. For next question by Cindy, for office environment, we do not generate SW. I think you're mentioning about scheduled waste. If recycler collect faulty IT hardware from our office, do we have to update 𝗚𝚻s?
Okay, so IT hardware, so certain IT hardware such as like battery, all those which contains electronic parts, they are schedule waste. Okay, if that is the case, you need to confirm whether is it a schedule waste first. Okay, if yes, then we need to update in 𝗚𝚻s as well. So you need to make the declaration and also identify whether it is a schedule waste or not first. Okay, thank you for the question.
Okay, next question by YS Lin. Can ISO 14001 and ISO 45001 be implemented at the same time?
All right. Definitely yes. All right. If implemented at the same time, you mean integration, lah. Okay. If you're referring to integration, then definitely yes. Given the similarity of the clause structure of ISO 14001 and also ISO 45001, right? I would say it will be quite simple to do the integration, lah. So if that is your question, I would say yes, it can be implemented at the same time. All right.
Okay. Next question is by Ivan Tan. Is ISO standard only for manufacturers?
Yep, I think it will be the same as those the Schedule A's regulation just now. To answer this question, the ISO standard does not just apply to does not just only manufacturer can get. Right, any business, if any size, any industry, or even if you are just a charity organization, if you would like to get ISO certified, definitely it can be done. All right. However, for certain ISO standards, such as ISO 22000, ISO 22000 is a food safety standard. Okay, so that case, then it can only be used for food industries. All right, but for ISO 14001 and ISO 45001, it can be used for any industry, any business, any size, or any organization. Okay, in short.
Next question by 𝗵𝗲𝗹𝗽𝗶. Do we need to report to 𝗏𝗲 on COVID-19 positive cases?
No, not really. Not necessary.
Not necessary. Okay. Next question is from 𝗚ǐ. SDS got expired date?
Yes, actually, it will be valid for 5 years from the date of publish of the SDS. Okay, so you have to refer to the date of publisher. Okay, based on the safety data sheet itself.
Okay. Next question. In what situation I would need a safety officer in my organization?
That is a very good question. If you are doing manufacturing, right, according to the safety and health officer, then if you have more than 500 employees, then you will need to hire and use a safety and health officer. Otherwise, if you have less than, then it will be not compulsory, lah. Okay, and also it will different. It varies across different industry. For other industries such as construction or mining activities, you can always refer to the safety and health officer order. Okay, it's available in Google. You can just type safety and health officer order. Okay, I hope I have clarified that question.
I think we have a few more questions, but never mind. We just go through it. I think the time is also it's okay. Next question from CS Tan. Chemical sludge from flocculation and biological sludge from aerobic pond, are they considered as scheduled waste? Are there procedures to exclude them to be disposed as scheduled waste, like landfill?
They are considered as scheduled waste, but if you would like to exclude from your scheduled waste notification, then you need to get the approval from the Department of Environment, which is the DOE, lah. Okay.
Okay.
Any other question?
Another question. I think we will put this as our last question. Now my company already have ISO 9001. If I implement ISO 45000, can it be integrated under one system?
Yes, definitely. It will be the same case as how I have mentioned just the ISO 14001 and ISO 45001. As a matter of fact, the clause structure of ISO 9001 also very similar to the ISO 45001, so it can be easily integrated as well. Okay, I hope I also have answered that question.
Okay. Thank you once again, John Nun, for your Q&A as well as your sharing. We apologize that the time allocated for the Q&A has come to an end, but no worries, we still have a few questions which I see we have not been answered yet, but no worries, our sales personnel will be contacting you to address your issues. So thank you once again, John Nun.
Thank you,
for your
everyone.
sharing.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay. Now, aside from today's webinar, Nexus Tech is also providing a few more webinars in the near future. We have, in October, Tips for Export to China, a complete guide, which will be shared by Dr. Ching, who is the CEO of CIQ Test Malaysia. So if you're interested to join, you may scan the QR code to register yourself. And in December, we have Using Technology for Your Business Growth by Mr. Darren Tan, which is our Nexus TAC Director. You may also scan the QR code if you wish to register yourself. If you didn't get to scan, you can also always go to our website to get the registration link. So I will quickly move on from here. All right, so now this is the step that, this is the place that I think most of you have been waiting for. We are giving away a free legal requirements register for manufacturers. It is a very useful information because it is applicable to all manufacturers. So what do you need to do to get yourself this free gift? All you need to do is 2 simple steps. One is like and follow our social media, which is Facebook or LinkedIn. And step 2 is to PM us your screenshot of you following us on our social media. And then we will send you this free legal requirements register. And if you do so, you are also standing a chance to win a 30 minutes complimentary consultation from us. And we will pick a total of 3 winners for this 30 minutes free consultation. We will announce the winners on our Facebook and our social media. Okay, 2 simple steps. So this is our social media link. You can always find us on Facebook. You can just type Nexus TACSB, or you can just scan this code, QR code that directly links to our social media. So thank you everyone for your time once again, and I hope everyone had a wonderful and fruitful session. Thank you once again, everyone. Have a great day ahead, and we hope to see you again soon.